Good evening, everyone. My name's Ian Burrell. I'm the Global Ambassador for the Rum category. What I do want to talk about today is one of the ways that we get rum into people's mouths around the world, and that's through cocktails. But the thing is with cocktails, everyone has their own recipe. Everyone has their own style as such. So what I want to do is make something really simple and then hopefully invite one or two people up here to do the same thing. So what I've done, I brought some, well, I've actually been given some rum, because that's one of my favorite rums in the world, a free one. It's one of the best rums in the world. But speaking of Guyana and speaking of rum, unfortunately, there is only one distillery in Guyana. Everyone know what that distillery is? DDL, the Demerara, the Diamond Distillery in Demerara. It's only one distillery. 200 years ago, there would have been over 150, 160 rum distilleries in the beautiful country of Guyana. But because of the change in politics, the change in unfair trading, distilleries have to be consolidated or closed down. Now there is only one. But fortunately, that distillery in Guyana has some of what we call the best rum stills. And one of the most important things is before we start tasting some of the rums, that we have to understand that when we talk about Guyanese rum, it should come from Guyana. Yeah? And so look for the good old 12-year-old, the 8-year-old, because we know they were blended, bottled, and aged entirely in Guyana. But we can still support some of the other rums that just say Demerara rums. There are some famous brands in this country. Woods, famous Guyanese rum. Old VD, Old Vatted Demerara as well. So when I make a punch, I always remember my grandmother's recipe. And we always start with one that's sour. Now, you can use lime juice, of course, lemon juice, a bit of grapefruit juice, a citrus. A lot of bartenders and mixologists use things like this. It's actually called super sour. It's a lime based cordial, but it's very, very citrus and acidic. But if you wanted to make like a really clear fruit cocktail, you can use that because it doesn't have the color of lime, but it tastes just like lime. So we're going to use that as our sour. The two of sweet generally would be sugar of any form. It could be molasses, it could be honey, it could be sorrel syrup. Is there any specific type of sugar in Guyana that is just local? Demerara sugar, thank you. Unfortunately, I found out a few years ago that the word Demerara, when it came to sugar, was never registered by Guyana. Can you believe that? Do you know where the most Demerara sugar in Europe comes from? I found this out actually when I was in Mauritius. Most Demerara sugar that comes into Europe is coming from Mauritius. I was furious after sailing down the Demerara River and drinking rum. I'm like, this is where Demerara sugar comes. What it was back in the days when sugar. When you made molasses and you had the sugar from that molasses and you had a little bit of darkness in there and that flavor, that particular style of sugar was called Muscovado sugar. But the Guyanese perfected it and made it even better. They actually made it lighter, much more pliable, actually much more profitable, and it became the Demerara style of sugar, as in Demerara of the Muscovado sugar. Unfortunately, someone didn't register it to only say Demerara sugar. It has to come from Demerara. But the Demerara style of sugar, which was the upgrade to Muscovado sugar, is 100% Guyanese.